Hi Sumates, welcome back to my channel. It's Needles by Tiara here. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to draft and cut this beautiful conical overburst corset pattern as displayed on the thumbnail. So for all your required measurements and all the materials that you're going to be needing for the drafting of this beautiful conical overburst corset, I am going to be leaving all of that on the description box down below. So without no further ado, let's dive right into it. So here is my pattern paper well laid out. Please ensure that your pattern paper is on fold. However, mine isn't on fold, but once I transfer it into my fashion fabric, I would ensure that that point is on fold. Now go in with your straight ruler and go ahead to mark out your straight line at that point. So this point right here is the point I'm going to be marking my straight line, which will equally serve as my shoulder point line. So having done that, remember, like I said earlier on, your starting line is equally your client shoulder point line. I hope you understand. Now place your tape from that starting line, which happens to be your shoulder point line. Now we'll move ahead to impute our basic point measurement. Now mark the distance between your client shoulder to your client bust point line. So the distance of your client shoulder to your bust point, go ahead to chalk it down, which is this. And next is the distance between your shoulder to your under bust point, which is this. And your client shoulder to your waist point, which is this. So with that being done, we'd go ahead to impute our client shoulder to full blouse length. So to do that, you're going to be placing your tape from your waist point line, which happens to be this point. Now place your tape on that point and come down by 6 inches or 7 inches as the case may be. So that will automatically become your client shoulder to full blouse length point. Now I'm going to be taking this measurement all the way down to this point. So this is basically to get the accuracy and the consistency of a straight line. Having done that, go in with your straight ruler and connect all these points into each other to form your basic straight line, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. So having imputed all of our point measurements, now we'd go ahead to label our pattern. This right here is my shoulder point line. This is my bust point line. This is my under bust point line. This is my front waist point line. And lastly, this is my front full blouse length point line. So having labeled all of our pattern, I need you to take notes. So we have our shoulder point, our bust point, under bust, waist point, and full blouse length point line, which is this. Moving on, we'd go ahead to impute the distance between our client shoulder to chest point measurements. So to get that, place your tape from your shoulder point line. Now you're going to be dividing your client bust circumference by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Whatever value that you have, you're going to be imputing that value as the distance between your client shoulder to chest point, which mine is this. Now go ahead to label it, reintroduce your straight ruler and go ahead to connect that point into each other to form your basic straight line. So with that being done, we'd go ahead to label our pattern. So this right here is our chest point line. Take note, this is our chest point line. So having done that, now we'd move ahead to impute the rest of our measurement, which happens to be our circumference measurement. So remember that this point right here is on fold. So now from the folded part of your pattern paper, now on your shoulder point line, to impute your circumference measurement, divide your shoulder circumference by 2 and chalk it down at that point. Now, whatever you have imputed on your shoulder point, please bring that same measurement down to your chest point and go ahead to chalk it down. Go in with your straight ruler and extend that point all the way in this way. Having done that, reintroduce your straight ruler and connect from your shoulder point line into your chest point line to form your basic straight line this way. So having done that, for your neckline width, you're going to be imputing 3 inches as your neckline width, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. Having imputed your 3 inches, now on your shoulder point line, place your tape on that point and come down by 1 inch which will serve as your shoulder slope. With that being done, reintroduce your straight ruler, connect from that 3 inches neckline width into your 1 inch shoulder slope, which is this. So with that being done, now go ahead to place your tape from your shoulder slope point line. Take it all the way down to your chest point, which is this, and go ahead to fold your tape into 2. Having done that, chalk down the midpoint of that line. And now at the midpoint of that line, you're going to be placing your tape at that point, coming by 0.5 inch. And lastly, on your chest point line, go ahead to divide your client's bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down on your chest point line. Now going with your armhole curve, connecting from that 1 inch into the midpoint of 0.5 inch and extensively down to your chest point. So please basically pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. Having imputed our armhole, now the next thing we'd go ahead to impute is our basic darts. So now on your bust point line, take note, we'd go ahead to divide our nipple to nipple by 2 and chalk it down at that point. So your nipple to nipple is your bust span. You're going to divide that value by 2 and chalk it down at that point. So mine is 9 inches divided by 2 would give me 4.5 inches. I've gone ahead to chalk down that value down on my bust point. And now I'm going to be taking that measurement at my bust point down to my full blouse length this way. Having done that, going with your straight ruler, connecting from your bust point down to your full blouse length this way. So having imputed our dart line, which happens to be our nipple to nipple divided by 2, before we proceed on, we'd have to go ahead to label our pattern paper. So firstly, remember the folded part of your pattern paper happens to be your center front, and this other part here happens to be your side front. So take note your center front and your side front. Now moving on, we'd go ahead to find the midpoint of our armhole curve. So to impute our princess darts, place your tape from your shoulder slope, go ahead to follow out the armhole curve that we have imputed at that point and take it all the way down to your chest point to get the total circumference of your armhole curve. Go ahead to indicate or chalk it down. Having gotten that value, go ahead to divide it into 2 to find half of the measurement of that curve line. So having gotten half of the measurement of your armhole curve, now we'd go ahead to place our tape from our shoulder slope all over again, and we're going to be imputing half of that measurement, which happens to be half of our armhole curve. So please go ahead to chalk down that value. Having done that, going with your curve ruler, connecting from your bust point into the midpoint of your armhole curve. So remember at this point we did find the value of the total circumference of our armhole, and we divided it into 2 and chalked down the midpoint of that line, which is this. So you're going to go in with your armhole curve, or your curve ruler to be precise, connecting from the midpoint of your armhole extensively down to your bust point this way. So it is very important and crucial that you must pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed, and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. I hope you understand. So go ahead to smoothen out that point this way. So with that being done, we'd go ahead to impute our underbust tightening. So at your underbust point, remember we have our pattern well labeled, we have our center front and our side front. So now on your underbust point, at your center front, you're going to chalk down 1 inch, which is this. And now at your side front, you're going to be imputing 1.5 inches at this point. So if your client is not busty, you'd go ahead to impute 1 inch on both your center front and your side front. But if your client is on a busty side like mine, you'd go ahead to impute 1 inch at your center front and 1.5 inches at your side front. I hope you understand. So with that being said, you're going to be taking all that measurement all the way down to your full blouse length on both your center front and your side front. I hope you understand. Now going with your straight ruler, connecting from your underbust point line down to your full blouse length point line this way. So we've gone ahead to do this for our center front, which is basically this. I would go ahead to do the same connection for our side front, which is basically this. So with this being done, you've successfully imputed your underbust tightening on both your center front and your side front. So remember that all of your connection is going to be stopping at your underbust point. Please do not exit that point. Now place your tape on your bust point and come down by 1 inch at that point. With that being done, go in with your curve ruler, connecting from the 1 inch imputed at your underbust on your center front down to the 1 inch that you came down with at your bust point line. So you're going to be doing that connection for both your center front and your side front. So please pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed at this point, and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. So we've gotten our center front underbust point curve. Now we'd go ahead to impute our side front underbust point curve this way. So now go ahead to smoothen out that point this way. So with this being done, you've successfully imputed your underbust curve. Moving on the princess curve that we have imputed at that point, we'd go ahead to impute our dart tightening. So place your tape on that curve line. Go ahead to chalk down 1 inch at that point, which is this. Please ensure that your placement of your dart is on the curvy part of your armhole and not at the straight point. I hope you understand. Go in with your curve ruler, connect from that 1 inch princess dart into your bust point this way. So please pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed, ensuring that it touches both the 1 inch princess dart and your bust point at the same time before you go ahead to do your connection all the way down. So please connect it this way and ensure that your curve ruler is being placed exactly this way for yours. I hope you understand. So now at this point, if we go ahead to eliminate the both sides of our princess dart, would most definitely have a shortage. So to augment for that shortage, on the lower region, would have to go ahead to replace the dart that we have imputed at that point. So remember that we came down at that point by 1 inch, which is exactly what I have at this point. Now to augment for that shortage, on the lower point of your princess curve, you're going to be placing your tape on that, like I said, the curvy part of your armhole. And you're going to be coming up at that point by 1 inch, which happens to be your dart replacement at that point. I hope you understand. Now going with your ruler all over again and go ahead to extend that point all the way up to the 1 inch dart replacement for your princess dart bustier. So like I said, you're going to be measuring out the dart and replace it on the lower side of your princess dart bustier line this way. So you're going to be replacing that 1 inch at the same time on your chest point line as well. So you're going to be making that replacement on your chest line as well. Having done that, going with your curve ruler, connect from that 1 inch dart replacement on your princess curve down to the 1 inch dart replacement that you have imputed on your chest point line this way. I hope you understand. So basically go ahead to connect it this way. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed our underbust dart and lastly our princess dart. Now moving on to our asymmetric neckline that we have as displayed on the thumbnail. Remember, we imputed our neckline of 3 inches width. Now for your depth, you're going to be imputing 3 inches as well. So your standard neckline width and and depth is 3 inches by 3 inches, which is exactly what I'm imputing at this point. Now going with your curve ruler, connecting from the 3 inches depth into the center front of your princess dart curve. So you're going to be connecting from that 3 inches down to the center front part of your princess dart curve. You're not going to be imputing, or you're not going to be extending the connection down to the side front of your princess dart curve. I hope you understand. So having imputed our symmetric neckline curve, please go ahead to smoothen out that point by blending it all the way in this way. So with that being done, I'll go in with my marker to highlight those points so that it can be visible and clear to you this way. So just like we did earlier on, place your curve ruler and connect it all the way down this way. Having gotten that, please reintroduce your straight ruler and go ahead to blend out that point So you do not want that point giving a sweetheart neckline. Please go ahead to ensure that that point is straight, and this is definitely what you're going to achieve for the input of your asymmetric neckline, which is basically this. Now moving on, we'll go ahead to impute the rest of our basic measurements. On your chest point, divide your bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down, which we already did. Remember, we replaced a dart of 1 inch, which we had on that princess, dart line on our chest point. So we're going to be imputing that same value on our bust point. Your bust circumference divided by 4 and the 1 inch dart replacement that you have at your princess dart curve. I hope you understand. At your underbust point, divide your underbust circumference by 4, chalk it down. Remember, we have a dart in between, so go ahead to measure out. I have a 2.5 inches dart, and I'm going to be replacing it on the side front of my underbust point. Now to my waist point line, I'll divide my waist circumference by 4, and I'll go ahead to chalk it down as well. So remember that we have a dart in between at this point of 2.5 inches. We'd go ahead to replace the dart on the side front of our waist point as well. Lastly, to our full blouse length point, we'd go ahead to divide our hip circumference by 4 and chalk it down at this point. Remember the dart that we have in between, which is 2.5 inches, would go ahead to replace it on the side front of our full blouse length. So before we go ahead to make all the connections, now on our full blouse length, please take notes. Remember, we divided our hip circumference by 4 and we imputed it at this point. And we have a dart of in between of 2.5 inches and we went ahead to replace that dart. Now on that point line, you're going to further come out by 2.5 inches. So you could do 2 inches or 2.5 inches or even 1.5 inches. Now going with your straight ruler and go ahead to extend that line all the way out. So having done that, I would go in with my straight ruler, connecting from my chest point down to my waist point with my straight ruler this way. So please pay attention to the way my connection is being done, and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. I hope you understand. So with that being done, I would reintroduce my curve ruler, so please pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed at this point. So to achieve the conical effect for your bustier, you're going to be placing your curve ruler this way, connecting from your waist point down to the extension of 2.5 inches that you had imputed on your full blouse length, which is this. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed all of our side basic curve. Now on the side front of your full blouse length, you're going to place your tape at that point and come up by 3 inches at that point. So come up at that point by 3 inches. Having done that, before we go ahead to make some connections, we'd have to go ahead to overlap the darts on each other. So you're going to be overlapping your center front underbust dart at your side front underbust dart. So to do that, I'm going to fold my pattern paper this way. Fold your center front underbust dart this way. Having done that, you'd go ahead to overlap it on your side front underbust dart. So ensure that it is well aligned on both sides. Exactly what I'm doing at this point is what you'd most definitely want to do. Now going with either your masking tape, or if you have some pins, go ahead to hold it down with your pin, just like as I am doing at this point. With that being done, so we've gone ahead to overlap both sides on each other. Remember, we came up at this point by 3 inches. Still on our full blouse length, on our center front, place your tape and come down at that point by 0.5 inch, which is basically what I'm doing at this point. So with that being said, going with your curve ruler, you're going to be placing your curve ruler this way. So please pay attention. You're placing your curve ruler, connecting it from the 3 inches into the center front dart line. So that center front dart line that aligns with your side front dart line, you're going to be making a connection from that point into that dart line. I hope you understand. So at this point, sit back and watch the way my curve ruler is being placed. Please go ahead to replicate same for yours. Make your connection from that 3 inches imputed on the side front of your full blouse length down to the midpoint of your dart line for both your center front and your side front. So having gotten our curve, now would further make another curve at this point. So to do that, I'll go in with my curve ruler. Please watch the way my curve ruler is being placed at every point. And I'm going to be connecting from that point down to the 0.5 inch that I had imputed at that point, which is basically this. Go ahead to smoothen out that point. You want it to be as smooth as possible at that point. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed our symmetric hemline curve for our conical overbust corset. Now we'd go in with our marker to re-highlight all those points to make it very clear and visible to you, just like we did earlier on. Go ahead to connect it all the way in. Having done that, go ahead to smoothen out this point just like we did earlier. So with this being done, like I said earlier on, we've successfully gotten our symmetric hemline for our overbust conical corset pattern. So we'd go ahead to take off the pins, and we're going to be keeping our pattern as it was before. So at this point, our conical overbust corset pattern is ready. But before we move on, please, at this point, you're free to go ahead to impute your side darts. So if you wish, you can impute your side dart. It is not compulsory. With or without a side dart, you would most definitely have a perfect fit for this conical overbust corset pattern. But if you wish, like I said, you could go ahead to impute your side dart for your pattern. I hope you understand. So moving on, I'll go in with my red marker, and I'm going to be shading all the points that I'm going to be taking off from my pattern. So I'm going to be taking off my underbust points, the underbust dart to be precise, and the princess dart that we have imputed at this point. We're going to be shading this point, and as well we're going to be taking it off. So all the shaded points are the points that we're going to be eliminating off from our pattern. I hope you understand. So with that being said, I'll go in with my scissors, and I'm going to eliminate all the darts and the excesses that we have. Please pay attention. You're taking through the curvy part of that line that you have imputed at your center front, and not the straight point of that line. I hope you understand. So go ahead to take it all the way down to this point. So if you have watched this video to this point, I mean, what are you waiting for? Kindly hit on the subscription button, like and follow for more of this related content. So once you're taking from this point, please do not exit that point. Go ahead to stop at that point, which happens to be that princess dart. Now go ahead to take off the excesses that you have imputed at your symmetric neckline point, which is this. Having done that, you're going to be taking from the center, you're going to be eliminating your center front underbust darts, cutting through this point all the way up to your underbust point line. Once you get to that point, go ahead to follow out the underbust point curve that we had imputed at that point. Go ahead to take it all the way up. Please pay attention. You're going to be taking off from the upper side and not the lower region. So you're cutting out the princess dart that we have on the center front. Take it all the way up this way. And with this being done, we've successfully eliminated all the excesses and the darts for our center front. Now moving on to our side front, we'd go ahead to eliminate all the darts and the excesses as well. So cut through the underbust point, take it all the way up to that point. From your underbust, go ahead to follow out the underbust curve this way. Having done that, go ahead to eliminate your princess darts that you have imputed at this point. Go ahead to take it all the way up, and go ahead to eliminate the excess that you have at that point. Please pay attention. This former armhole curve right here is no longer valid. This is the valid armhole curve. I hope you understand. So now, before you go ahead to eliminate or take off the excesses at your armhole point, I need you to take note of this. So before you do that, on your chest point line, remember that we're making a tube conical overbust corset. You're going to come up at that point by 0.5 inch and reconnect from that princess dart dart replacement down to that 0.5 inch. So this is to give your armhole a bit of a covering. Like I said earlier on, you're going to place your curve ruler this way, connecting from that point of 0.5 inch you came up at your chest point all the way up to that point. Having done that, you'd go ahead to eliminate that point this way. But for mine, I didn't do that. Reason being that I'm going to be doing that directly on my fashion fabric. I hope you understand. please go ahead and ensure that you have to do that for yours. It is very important and crucial. Moving on, we'd go ahead to eliminate all the excesses that we have at this point. So please take note of all the points that I'm eliminating all from our pattern. It is very important and crucial. I hope you understand. And voila, our pattern is already taking a very beautiful shape. Look at how perfect this came out looking. The asymmetric neckline, you can see the conical effect on the side. You can see how well beautifully imputed our princess dot line is. You can see our underbust point curve, how it flows evenly down to our full blouse length on both sides. And you can see how this pattern is already taking a very beautiful shape. So without no further ado, let's dive right into drafting our back pattern. So for our back pattern, here is my pattern paper well laid out. Having done that, just like we did with the front pattern, we'd go ahead to mark out our straight line at this point. So with that being done, remember the starting line would equally serve as our shoulder point line. So all of our basic measurement is going to be starting from that line. Now moving on, place your tape from your shoulder point line, and at that point, come down by the distance between your client shoulder to bust point, which is this. Next is your client shoulder to underbust point, which is this. And next is your client shoulder to waist point, which is this. And lastly is the distance between our client shoulder to full blouse length. So just like we did with the front pattern, place your tape on your waist point and come down at that point by either 6 or 7 inches. So whatever you did imputed as the full length of your blouse for your front pattern, you'd go ahead to make sure that you impute that same value on your back pattern. So with that being said, you're going to be taking that measurement all the way down here, basically to get the consistency and the accuracy of your straight line. Going with your straight ruler and connect all those points into each other to form your basic straight lines. So with that being done, we'd go ahead to label our pattern. So this right here is our shoulder point line, our bust point, under bust, waist point, and full blouse length, which is that point. Just like we did with our front pattern, place your tape from your shoulder point and go ahead to mark down the distance between your client shoulder to chest point line. So whatever you did imputed for your front pattern, go ahead to chalk down that same value as the distance between your client shoulder to chest point line. Going with your straight ruler and connect that point into each other, please go ahead to label this point to be your chest point line. Now moving on, we'd go ahead to impute our circumference measurement. On your shoulder point, divide your shoulder circumference by 2 and chalk it down. Bring down that same measurement to your chest point, going with your straight ruler, connecting from your shoulder point down to your chest point line this way, and extensively connect from that point all the way in this way. So with that being done, for our neckline width, you're going to impute 3 inches as your neckline width. So this is really not necessary since we're not going to be using the yoke. However, let's go ahead to impute that value. Now place your tape and come down at that point by 1 inch to serve as your shoulder slope. Going with your straight ruler, connect from your 3 inches width into your 1 inch shoulder slope. Now on your shoulder slope point line, take it all the way down to your chest point line this way. Now go ahead to fold your tape into 2 and chalk down the midpoint. Still at the midpoint line, place your tape and come in by 0.5 inch at that point. Lastly, on your chest point line, go ahead to divide your client's bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down. Going with your armhole curve, connecting from your shoulder slope into the midpoint and extensively down to the chest point. Having imputed your armhole point, now we'd move ahead to impute the rest of our circumference measurements. Please take notes. On your waist point line, you're going to divide your client's nipple to nipple by 2 and chalk it down at that point. Take that measurement up to your bust point this way. Having done that, on your waist point line, we'd go ahead to impute the length of our dart. So to do that, place your tape from your waist point line, remember, place it on your waist point line to be precise, and chalk down 5 inch or 5.5 inches, which will happen to be the length of your dart. So now you're going to be taking that same measurement down to that 5.5 inches or your 5 inches that length. I hope you understand. So now go ahead to connect all those points into each other, starting from your full blouse length up to your bust point this way. So just like we said earlier on, place your tape on your waist point and come down by either 5 inches or 5.5 inches, which happens to be the length of your dart. So remember, we have our pattern. This right here is our center front and this is our side front, your center front and your side front. So on your waist point line to impute your darts, so you're going to be, basically imputing 0.5 inch on both sides of your waist point on the dart line. So impute 0.5 inch at the center front and 0.5 inch at the side front. Go in with your straight ruler and connect all those points all the way up to your bust point this way. So having gotten the connection for our center front, now we'd go ahead to impute the connection for our side front as well. So with that being done, we're going to be connecting from that point 0.5 inch on our waist point down to the 5 inch or the 5.5 inches, which happens to be the length of our darts this way. So we've gotten the connection for our center front and now for our side front. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed our dart at that point. Moving on, we'd go ahead to impute the rest of our circumference measurement. On your chest point line, divide your bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down at that point. At your bust point line, go ahead to impute that same value. Divide your bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down. Now to your waist point line, divide your client waist circumference by 4 and chalk it down as well. Now you're going to be measuring the dart that you have in between, which is 1 inch, and you're going to be replacing it on the side front of your waist point this way. Lastly, to your full back blouse length, you're going to divide your client hip circumference by 4 and chalk it down at that point. Having done that, remember for our front pattern, we further came out at that point by 2.5 inches. So we'd go ahead to impute that same value at this point. With that being done, we'd go in with our straight ruler, connecting from our chest point down to our waist point this way. So having gotten the first connection, with the reintroduction of our curve ruler, just like we did place the curve ruler for our front pattern, it is very important and crucial that you must have to place your curve ruler exactly the same way for your back pattern. Now bringing back my front pattern, you can see how well placed my curve ruler is at that point, ensuring that it aligns the back curve conical effect curve to that of the front conical effect curve at that point. I hope you understand. So go ahead to connect it all the way down, ensuring that the conical effects that you have on both your front pattern and your back pattern aligns perfectly. I hope you understand. Now before we proceed on, the next thing we'd go ahead to determine is the depth of our yoke. Now for mine, I'm going to be using my chest point as the depth of my yoke. Bringing back my front pattern, this is the reason why I said you'd have to use the chest point as the depth of your back yoke. Reason being that you want both your front pattern and your back pattern to align perfectly. Haven't joined it on both sides. I hope you understand. So go ahead to mark down those points and connect all the points into each other with your basic straight ruler. So go ahead to label this part as your back yoke depth. Now remember, just like we did for the front pattern, place your tape on your chest point and come up at that point by 0.5 inch, connect it all the way in. So just like you did with your front pattern, you'd most definitely have to do same for your back pattern. So now at that point, you'd go ahead to extend that line all the way up, just like we did. For our corset back opening, place your tape on the depth of your yoke. Go ahead to impute either 1 inch or 1.5 inches and take that value all the way down to your full blouse length. Reintroduce your straight ruler and connect all those points into each other to form your basic straight line. So with this being done, you've successfully imputed your corset back opening. So this point right here that we're making some dots is the points that you're going to be attaching your eyelets to. I hope you understand. So now at the full length of our blouse, just like we did for the front pattern, Place your tape on the side front of your full length of your blouse and come up at that point by 3 inches. With that being done, go in with your curve ruler, slightly curved ruler to be precise, and connect from that point all the way in this way. So this is exactly what we have depicted on the thumbnail. But for mine, I am going to be using a bit of a stylish hemline for my back pattern. So I'm going to place my slightly curved ruler this way, and I'm going to be connecting it all the way down. So this is entirely optional. I want mine to be a bit of stylish at this point, hence the reason for this. But if you want exactly what we have depicted on the thumbnail, you'd have to go ahead to use the first curve. I hope you understand. So at this point, we're going to place our tape and come out at that point by 0.5 inch, which is this. With the reintroduction of our curve ruler, just like we did earlier on, we're going to be placing this part of the curve ruler, ensuring that we still maintain our conical shape at that point and connect it down to that 0.5 inch this way. So having done that, for those that are going to be using this point, you're going to be extending it all the way in. So like I said earlier on, I am going to be using a bit of a stylish hemline, which happens to be this curve at this point. So I'm going to be extending that curve all the way in this way. So with that being done, to further ensure that both the conical effect for both our front pattern and our back pattern align perfectly, would go ahead to ensure by bringing it back together, and you can see how perfectly beautiful and well aligned those points is. Now go in with your red marker and make your strokes at this point. So all the shaded points is the points that we're going to be taking off from our pattern. I hope you understand. So like I said, I'm going to be using the second curve at that point. So I'm going to be taking off the first curve that we had imputed at that point. So either way, like I said, you could go ahead to use any of those curves. It is very much okay. So I would go in with my scissors and I would go ahead to eliminate all the excesses that I have at every given point. I hope you understand. So another very important thing that I want you to equally understand is the fact that your back dart that you have imputed at this point is optional. So you can decide to impute your dart or not. It totally depends on you. But for mine, I'm going to be using my dart. Hence the reason why I did imputed the dart. So I'm going to be taking off all the excesses that we have at every given point. So just sit back and watch while I take you through that process. So if you have watched this video to this point, I mean, what are you waiting for? Kindly hit on the subscription button, like and follow for more of this related content. So having eliminated all your side excesses, which is exactly what you're seeing at this point, now we'd go ahead to detach our yoke from the lower base of our corset. So to do that, you're going to be slashing through the yoke depth that you did imputed, which is your chest point line. Take it all the way in this way. So we do not have any need for this yoke. So we're going to be keeping this aside while we work on the lower base of our back pattern. So now we're going to be taking off our corset back opening. So go ahead to slash through that point. Take it all the way up to your chest point this way. Having eliminated our corset back opening, so like I said earlier on, at this point now you're going to go in with your curve ruler. I do not want that place entirely looking straight. I'm going to place my curve ruler and make a curve at that point. So go ahead to make a curve at that point, exactly how I did, and go ahead to smoothen out that point all the way in. So I'll go in with my marker to re-highlight that point. Like I said, go in with your curve ruler and go ahead to make a curve at that point. So I'm going to be using my straight ruler to extend that point all the way in. So you can see how beautifully curvy that point is. Go in with your scissors and go ahead to eliminate all the excesses. So like I said, I'm going to be taking the stylish hemline at this point all the way down this way. So with this being done, we've successfully eliminated the excesses at that point. Moving on, I am going to be slashing through the midpoint of my darts. So you can equally take this directly from your fashion fabric, or you can as well go ahead to eliminate the darts. So to eliminate the darts, we'd go ahead to label our pattern, make an arrow and go ahead to identify that place, that point rather, to be your center front, and this right here to be your side front. So having done that, let's go in with our scissors and slash open the midpoint of our dart line so that we'll be able to eliminate the dart that we have on both sides of our waist point. So having slashed through the midpoint, now we'll go ahead to eliminate the dart that we have on both the center front and the side front of our waist point line. So I'm going to be taking from this point all the way up this way, and I'm going to be taking it all the way up to eliminate the dart that I have at that point. So having eliminated the center front waist point dart, now we'll go ahead to replicate same for our side front waist point dart as well. So with this being done, we've successfully eliminated the waist point that we have on both our center front and our side front, and you can see how beautiful and pretty our back pattern is already looking and taking shape. So we have our well eliminated corset back opening at this point, our stylish hemline. You can see how the chest point runs to your waist point, and the conical shape effect that we have at that point. So this is certainly what you'd want to achieve, having followed through the process, and of course you've gotten it right. So now bringing back our front pattern, we're going to be making some adjustments on the center front part of our pattern. Remember, we have an asymmetric neckline imputed at this point, so we're most definitely going to have a bit of a gaping at that point. So to eliminate that gaping, we'd have to work on the center front part of our pattern for our front pattern. I hope you understand. So to do that, I'm going to be keeping the side front aside while we work on the center front of our front pattern. So this right here is the center front part of our front pattern. Like I said, remember this point has to be on fold. I hope you understand. Please, I need you to pay very keen attention to what I'm going to be doing at this point. So you can see how your princess dart flows down to your bust point, extensively down to your under bust point, and down to your full corset blouse length. So now from your bust point line, being this point right here, you're going to be making a connection all the way up to your neckline point. So to do that, like I said earlier on, you're going to go ahead to connect from your bust point region. So this right here is my bust point. I'll go in with my straight ruler, and I'm going to be placing my straight ruler this way, a bit tilted, and I'm going to be connecting from my bust point line up to my asymmetric neckline that I have imputed at that point. I hope you understand. So now to better clarify what I'm trying to do at this point, go ahead to chalk down 2.5 inches at this point. Now going with your straight ruler, connecting from that 2.5 inches all the way down to your bust point line, just like we did. So place your straight ruler, connect from your bust point up to the 2.5 inches imputed at your asymmetric neckline point. I hope you understand. So now to eliminate the gaping at that point, we're going to be imputing a dart, and that dart in total is going to be 0.5 inch. So divide that by 2, you're going to be imputing 0.25 on both sides of that line. So you're going to impute 0.25 on both sides. I hope you understand. 0.25 at the center front and 0.25 at the side front. With that being done, going with your straight ruler, connecting from the 0.25 down to your bust point line. So watch the way my straight ruler is being tilted at this point, and please do go ahead to replicate same for yours. So we've gotten the first connection for our center front point. Now for our side front still being 0.25, we're going to be connecting from that point down to our bust point. Ensure that all your connection stops at your bust point. I hope you understand. So with that being done, now we'd go ahead to overlap these darts on each other. So to do that, you're going to be taking from one side of the dart and you'd go ahead to overlap it on the other. Take from one side of your 0.25 and go ahead to overlap it on the other side of your 0.25 line. I hope you understand. So basically watch what I'm doing at this point. Go ahead to fold it, ensuring that it aligns perfectly and beautifully at that point, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. So with that being done, you're going to go in with your masking tape to hold it down. Please ensure that one part of your 0.25 aligns perfectly on the other part of your 0.25. I hope you understand. So I'll go in with my masking tape to hold it down. this way. So basically just sit back and watch what I'm doing, and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. So ensure that it is relaxed perfectly at your bust point line, and ensure that it is well overlapped on each other to 0.25 on both sides, and tape it down all the way down just like I'm doing at this point. I hope you understand. So with this being done, we've successfully eliminated any or every of the gaping that we're supposed to have at our symmetric neckline at this point. So you can see a bit of a shortage at this point. So you can either reconnect that point to eliminate that shortage, or you can augment for that shortage by, once you transfer it to your fashion fabric, you go ahead to make the connection. So please take note, your bust point at this point is not affected at all. I hope you understand. So the only point that is, being eliminated is the gaping point of the 0.25 on both sides. Your bust point is not affected at all. Do not worry. This is exactly what you're going to achieve. And voila, our pattern is ready. Look how beautiful our conical overbust corset came out looking. Our symmetric neckline at that point, you can see how it flows down to our chest point, and how it aligns perfectly on the back region, still at the chest point. You can see how that point flows down to our chest, our waist point rather, and evenly down to our full corset blouse length, which happens to be the conical effect that we have at that point. And of course our stylish hemline at that point. So look how beautifully imputed our princess style line is imputed at that point. Like I said earlier on, please ensure that your pattern is on fold. It is very important and crucial. Speaking of the back pattern, you can see our well eliminated corset back opening, and you can see how it flows evenly down to the chest point of both our front pattern and our back pattern aligning perfectly. Our well eliminated that on both sides. So for those that region, you are going to be joining it back. You can see how that stylish hemline, the conical effect, sits pretty at that point. And of course, lastly, you can see our well eliminated gaping point on our neck region. Now moving on, remember that we've not added all the basic allowances for this pattern. So at this point, we're going to be adding all of our basic allowance. So please take note. At this point, it will be on fold. On this point, you're going to be adding 0.5 inch all the way around on both sides. I hope you understand. So on your symmetric neckline point, you're going to be imputing 0.5 inch all the way down to your chest point. And on your side front, you're going to be imputing either 1 inch or 2 inches for your basic sewing allowances. So whatever you're going to be using for the basic sewing allowance of your side bodies for your front pattern, you must go ahead to use same for the back pattern. For the lower region, you're going to be adding 0.5 inch all the way around. I hope you understand. Now, speaking of our back pattern, you're going to be adding 0.5 inch at this point, 0.5 inch. And like I said earlier on, whatever you have imputed as the side front seam allowance for your front pattern, you must go ahead to impute that same side front seam allowance for your back pattern. And on this point, you're going to be adding 0.5 inch, and of course on your waist region point, which happens to be the well eliminated that at that point, you're going to be adding 0.5 inch all the way around. These are all the basic seam allowances that you're going to be imputing on your pattern. So with this being done, we've come to the end of the drafting of our beautiful conical overbust corset. Thank you, and I'm going to be seeing you on my next video. Bye.